hope.
We're gathered here today in this early October, the friends and the family well-wishers of Evan and Tara, to celebrate and seal their vows of marriage to one another with our loving thoughts and with our sincere, heartfelt goodwill for their success and happiness together. Evan and Kara both share a great love and appreciation for nature, the forests, the lakes, and the mountains of the Sierra, the awe-inspiring beauty and diversity of the plant kingdom. So you will hear many nature themes in this opening address. It's a beautiful time for a marriage. It's a time when the sun courses lower through the sky and casts long shadows from its slanted rays. In the evenings, the warm golden rays of the low sun summon forth shades of blues and violets in the deep shadows. And in the crisp air of the early mornings, the dew-laden grasses sparkle like myriad constellations of stars. Autumn can be a time of awakening, but to see this we must think with a little bit of poetic imagination. When we sleep at night, the forces of all those faculties that we enjoy in the light of day, our thinking, activity, our feelings and emotions that come and go, and the engagement of our will and all the activities of our life, all these powers are sent away as we enter into a deep sleep. Where to? To unite with the forces of nature, to plunge into the depths of the unconscious, perhaps soar into a transcendent, invisible world. Then we awaken in the morning. We gather all those forces back into ourselves. We live again with thinking, with sentience, with powers of will. So too, if we allow ourselves to think with some poetic imagination, we can consider the earth in summer has sent forth all of its forces into the plant world. In the first stages of sleep, we dream, so too with the earth. In the springtime, we see the first stages of the earth sleeping. It's manifested as all those colorful dreams and all the multitudes of blossoms and flowers and the greening of the hillsides with the perennial grasses and in the buds of the new growth on trees. Then in the deep sleep of summer, all those forces of the earth have been sent fully streaming up into the farthest reaches of the branches, into the plant's sap that rises towards the sun along the bark of the trees and the stems of the plants. And that somewhat coarse and milky substance is further refined as it travels towards the sun into the nectars of the blossoms, so fine that it becomes the dust of pollen, and finally the sweetness of the fruits and grains, refined so far that it becomes just merely volatile wisps of a fragrance. All those what were once subterranean forces now reached up to the farthest ends of the trees and the plants. Then autumn arrives and that sap begins to withdraw. The growth forces now begin to draw back into the soils of the earth until winter, when the plant life becomes still and dormant. And now those forces regathered into the soil stir in the ground below. Above, nature sleeps, while below in the earth something is awake and stirring. This is echoed above, where the cold air clears the atmosphere so that the stars shine their brightest in the winter, so bright that when snow lies on the ground on a dark night before the moon has risen, one can walk through forest clearings guided only by starlight. Those jeweled sparkles in the dome of the sky can be mirrored in the awakening human being. There they can be seen as those synaptic sparks that twinkle within the dome of our own skull, much like the constellations of the stars above. Our awake thinking forces can become just like starlight. We too, like the earth, can awaken as the winter approaches, awakening to ever more refined and sensitive perception to what already surrounds us. The brilliant light and the radiant heat of the summer sun in the darkest days of winter can shine within us, awakening as an inner warmth of heart at Christmas, such as we often feel. Autumn is the path to such an awakening. And autumn is also the season of preparation for the future. Autumn for many centuries has been the time of the harvest, when the grain fields are mown, the bounty of the sheaves are gathered and winnowed, and where one literally enjoys the fruits of one's labors. But one also takes stock of what is needed for the future, and lays aside from the harvested grain the seeds from the best and the hardiest of the plants. So too in human life, we too should take stock of the thoughts, the deeds and feelings that have run their course through the year in our lives, and save the very best. Put those aside for the year ahead. Autumn directs us to what we can do in preparation for the future. So we see that autumn, on this day of Evan and Kara's celebration, is a very fortuitous and auspicious time for a marriage, a time that directs us to the future and to the possibility of greater awakening. I'm hoping many of you have had the experience of being in some natural setting, perhaps alone or with a companion, where some occurrence, some event, some phenomenon happened that you alone knew you were the only witness to that event. Perhaps you found yourself by a quiet lake, surrounded by silent forests and towering granite crags, and suddenly there was a flapping of wings and a mighty eagle landed up in the high reaches of the branches and settled there and then fixed its gaze on you and then soared away off into the distance. You knew it was an exquisite moment for you and your eyes only. I'm hoping that Evan and Kara have many such experiences like that, especially in their adventures upcoming in New Zealand. And at that time, they might consider the following words with which I will conclude this opening address. You never enjoy the world aright until you feel the rivers and seas flowing in your veins, until you wear upon your shoulders a mantle veiled with the colors of the sky, and upon your head a crown jeweled with the very stars, and you stride through the glens and forests as within chambers of your own palace, and you look upon the towered mountains as ramparts of your own castle, and you perceive yourself to be sole heir to the whole world, and rejoice that there are others who dwell upon it, who are everyone's sole heirs as well as you. Now Evan and Kara will share some personal words to one another that we all get to hear.
Nicely done.
Kara, when I first met you, I knew I was drawn to you. I felt like I could be myself around you. And our friendship easily grew and transformed quickly into a romantic relationship. Through each stage of change, everything came naturally like it was meant to be. You quickly became my best friend. My closest confidant. And I don't know if you want me to share this, but I remember our first camping trip together. I'll never forget it. It was the moment that I realized that I had truly and completely and utterly fallen in love with you. I know it took me a little bit to tell you it. Unfortunately, the way that I told you was awkwardly by putting it in at the end of a phone conversation. But that was the moment that I completely knew I was in love with you. When we first spent more than a week apart, I literally felt the pain that it caused me in my heart. We've been through a lot together to get to this point. On this beautiful day, surrounded by all these beautiful friends and family. And our life's journey has taken us through times of tragedy and sorrow, through times of great joy and adventure, and through the transformations and changes that we have made each and individually in our lives. Of the tests and challenges we have faced in our relationship, we've come out stronger always. Without a doubt, I can say I fall more and more in love with you every day that I wake up next to you. I am blessed to have you in my life. You're absolutely beautiful. You inspire me. And you make me appreciate the life that I have. I'm so grateful to have you. I'm absolutely overjoyed because soon I'll be able to call you my wife.
Yeah.